I need to tell you something that exactly 72 hours ago, only 14 people on this interior planet knew, and I am risking absolutely by saying it out loud to you right now. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Please comment your city name below and tell me honestly, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently? Any flickering starts any lights that shouldn't be there. NASA is quietly collecting data, and what they are finding is deeply disturbing. Do it now, because what I am about to share may fundamentally change the way you see humanity's as fragile place in the universe. They didn't come to conquer us. They didn't come to destroy us. They came to grade us, and we failed. For 60 seconds, the entire world went deaf. Every radio telescope, every deep space network, every listening post frozen. And when the silence broke, it wasn't static that came through, it was a verdict. It happened at exactly 9 o'clock UTC. There was no forewarning, no preliminary spikes in the background radiation, no gravitational waves rippling through the fabric of space-time to warn us that something massive was approaching. It just happened across the globe, from the high-altitude arrays in the Atacama Desert to the deep dish receivers in rural Australia. The telemetry feeds died for exactly 60 seconds. The ears of humanity were covered. Technicians in control rooms from NASA to the European frantically checking connections, rebooting systems, assuming a solar flare or a massive cyber attack had simultaneously crippled the world's observational infrastructure. The panic in those rooms was palpable. It was the kind of cold, sweating fear that comes when you realize that the machines aren't broken, they are being overridden. Then the silence ended, but what replaced it was infinitely worse. The signal that flooded back into the buffers wasn't the random hiss of cosmic background. It was a carrier wave, impossibly strong and perfectly synchronized, originating from the exact coordinates of the object we have been tracking for months, Interstellar Object 3, I-Atlas. We thought 3I Atlas was a comet. We thought it was a tumbling rock, a chaotic visitor from another star. We were wrong. The tumbling was a scan, the flickering was a transmission, and now the scanning phase is over. The object has finished its data collection and it has sent its final report. The message that was decoded from that, it wasn't a mathematical primer teaching us how to count in primes, it was a notification. The data packet contained a preamble, a sequence of audio so clear it felt artificial, speaking in a synthesized tone that bypassed the need for linguistic translation software. It didn't say, "Take me to your leader." It didn't ask for water or gold. It spoke 4 words that are currently being analyzed by every intelligence agency on the planet, words that might define the rest of human history. Your time is ending. This wasn't a threat of extermination. It was an administrative decree as the encrypted layers of the transmission, 17 hours of dense petabyte scale data began to unravel in secure servers. The picture became terrifyingly clear. 3. I-Atlas isn't a ship, it is an evaluator, it is a cosmic auditor. The transmission revealed that this object, or others like it, has been monitoring Earth for exactly 847 solar cycles. So they have been watching, they have observed our industrial revolution, our world wars, our splitting of the atom, and our stumbling first steps onto the moon. We assumed that if aliens were watching, they would be curious about us. We assumed they would want to know who we are, but the message made it clear. They already know us better than we know ourselves, and they are not impressed. The verdict, as leak sources are calling it, is a comprehensive dismantling of the human ego. The intelligence behind 3I Atlas views humanity not as a promising young civilization, but as a volatile, self-destructive pathogen. The transmission cited our history not with judgment or anger, but with the cold, detached disappointment of a scientist looking at a failed petri dish. It listed our inability to balance resource consumption with sustainability. It highlighted our tendency to weaponize every new technology we discover within a single generation of its invention. We have failed the entrance exam to the galactic community. So what happens to a species that fails? They don't destroy it. That would be inefficient and crude. Instead, they quarantine it. 3. Atlas declared that a technological ceiling is being placed over our solar system. The transmission outlined a network of automated sentinels, objects we likely haven't even detected yet, positioned at the heliopause. These aren't walls, they are filters. The message implies that any signal we try to send out into deep space from this point forward will be intercepted and neutralized. Any physical craft we attempt to send beyond the orbit of Pluto will be disabled. We are being grounded. Imagine the psychological weight of that. For generations, we have looked at the stars and dreamed of warp drives, of colonizing the galaxy, of meeting our neighbors. We believed it was our destiny to expand. Now we are being told in no uncertain terms, no, you are not. You stay here. It changes everything. It turns the night sky from a frontier into a ceiling. The universe is no longer an open ocean waiting for our ships. It is a museum, and we are the exhibits behind the glass. We are allowed to look, but we are not allowed to touch. The transmission described our future status as a protected primitive reservation. We are to be preserved, studied, and allowed to exist within our natural habitat. But we will not be permitted to infect the rest of the galaxy with our tribalism and our violence. Perhaps the most devastating aspect of the signal was the visual data 3. Atlas didn't just send words, it sent video. It sent high resolution, impossible angles. The evidence is us. They showed us the moments we could have chosen peace and chose war. They showed us the inventions that could have healed the planet but were suppressed for profit. They showed us the exact moments where our collective wisdom failed to keep up with our collective power. It is a highlight reel of human failure compiled by an immortal observer. This creates a profound existential crisis. How do you argue with a judge who has video evidence of every crime you've ever committed? How do you plead your case when the prosecutor has been watching you for 800 years? The arrogance of humanity, the belief that we are special, that we are the protagonists of the universe, has been shattered. We are not the heroes. We are the dropouts, however. Buried deep in the final data blocks of the transmission, there was a strange dissonant note. After hours of cold administrative judgment, the tone shifted. The message ceased addressing the species and began addressing the individual. It seems the containment is absolute for the civilization, but not necessarily for the consciousness. The transmission spoke of a threshold. It admitted that while humanity as a collective entity is dangerously unstable, individual human minds possess the raw potential for what they call resonance. It suggested that the barrier to the stars is not physical, but cognitive. We cannot build a ship to escape the quarantine because the quarantine is built to stop our behavior, not our atoms. If a human being can evolve past the tribalism, past the ego, and past the violence that defined our species' failing grade, the message implies that a different door opens. It spoke of consciousness as a non-local phenomenon, something that can be transferred or uplifted. This is the most controversial part of the leak, and many scientists are dismissing it as misinterpretation or wishful thinking, but others are fixated on it. It sounds almost religious, yet it is framed in the language of quantum physics. It suggests that while the body is stuck on Earth, the mind, if sufficiently advanced, can be invited out. it hints that the cosmic integration we failed to achieve politically can still be achieved personally. Now, the signal has stopped. 3i, Atlas has gone silent again. It is no longer tumbling, no longer flickering. It is simply moving away, its job done, it came, it saw, it graded, and it left. We are left in the aftermath. The governments of the world are trying to keep a lid on the full extent of the verdict, but they don't know that we have been put in a timeout box by the adults of the galaxy. But the question remains, is the verdict final? The transmission said, your time is ending, but does that mean our time as a free species or our time as a violent species? Is the quarantine a prison sentence or is it a cocoon? Are we being locked up to rot or are we being locked up until we mature? For the first time in history, humanity shares a common fate. We are all inmates in the same cell. The borders between our nations seem pitifully small when you realize there is a giant invisible. Do not cross line drawn around our entire solar system. We have been humbled. We have been shamed. But maybe, just maybe, this is exactly what we needed. We have spent thousands of years fighting each other for scraps of land on this pale blue dot. Now we know that the rest of the universe is off limits until we learn to share. The final warning isn't just a threat, it's a challenge. 3i Atlas has cast its vote. It thinks we won't make it. It thinks we will burn ourselves out inside our cage. It has left us here to die or evolve, and the test is no longer about building faster rockets or bigger bombs. The test is whether we can prove the verdict wrong. The silence is back. The telescopes are listening to nothing but the static of our own isolation. The universe is still there, beautiful and vast. But the door is locked, and the only key is hidden somewhere inside us.